Hi guys, welcome to our April Kansas City Office 365 user group meeting. I see that we've already got quite a few people logged in. Hopefully you guys can see the upcoming events slide that I have posted. I know that everything's a little weird right now, and this is a little bit different than we normally do it because we normally do a Teams meeting and we can all talk and chat with each other. I just knew that there would be a lot more attendees this month, and I didn't want to limit anybody's bandwidth. So we actually turned this into what we call a Teams live meeting. It's a live event, and it's more webinar quality. So we have some stuff we can do on the back end, but at the same time, it also makes it a lot easier for you guys to attend the meeting and to be able to see the meeting. So that said, I will go over some of the upcoming events, and then I will switch over and you'll be able to see my screen in just a moment. So I'm going to pop myself on here so you guys can see me. Give me 1 second. Pull myself in. So one thing to remember is because this is a webinar, everything's got to run about 30 seconds behind from the time that I do it. We do have a Q&A, so on the right-hand panel of your screen, you should see a list on the right that gives you the opportunity to be able to post questions. We'll be watching those questions as they come in. We'll try to answer some basic ones and publish those out to the group. But at the very, very end of the presentation, so after I go through everything, after I go through the Teams presentation, at the very end, I've saved about 15 minutes or so to just focus on Q&A. So if you guys post a question and we haven't gotten it answered during the course of the presentation, at the end, I will go back and I will read through the questions and I'll try to answer as many of them as I can. But if I don't get to your question for some reason because we don't have time, or if you have any additional questions, you're always welcome to email me and I'll do my best to answer it. So first and foremost, a quick overview of the upcoming events. Next month, we're really excited to have Joel Olson. He's going to present on Project Cortex. Project Cortex is a really cool new thing that Microsoft is putting together around knowledge management. And he's going to kind of talk about a little bit high level of what it is and what you guys need to do to prepare for that. So you can just go to your normal Eventbrite or go to the user group website and register for that next month. We'll be doing all of our monthly meetings virtually until we get the all clear to be able to go back into person. The next thing you notice on here is the Lawrence SharePoint user group. Once again, they've been meeting virtually for a long time, which is great. So they've already got that set up. Unfortunately, I think April had to cancel, but it was last week anyways. So the next one that's coming up is in May, and I've got the link here for you guys to be able to register for that. The Kansas City IABA group is going to be doing a remote seminar on working remotely. So they're going to have a panel of people talking about that, and the link down there. That's going to be next week on Wednesday in the evening. And then on the right-hand side, I do want to point out that there are some virtual things that are happening. So the first one is Microsoft Build. This is really cool, guys. If you want to learn more about technology, there's always this annual conference that happens that Microsoft puts on called Microsoft Build. It's very tech and very dev heavy. This year, they've decided to make it a digital experience along with Ignite, if you guys haven't heard that. So in May, they're going to do a virtual digital experience for Build. If you'd like to register, the link is right there. So you don't have to go to the Microsoft campus to be able to do it this year. You can just simply log in and do it virtually. SharePoint Saturday Omaha was planned for March and it got postponed, but they are going to be doing a virtual conference and there's more details on that to come soon. So I did put the link there if you want to register for that. And last but not least, the North American Collaboration Summit that happens in Branson. Obviously, we couldn't do it in the spring because of the restrictions, but it has been rescheduled to September, and hopefully we'll all be able to get back in person together by then. So if you had tickets to Branson, they will automatically convert over to the September dates. If you did not have tickets for Branson, you're in luck. You have more time to buy more. So just go to collabsummit.org and you can buy your tickets there. All right, so let me pull this one down. And I'm going to also here we go. Okay, so I know that a lot of people want to know kind of when the next meetings are, or if they want to speak, or if they want to see videos from past presentations. So just so you guys know, we do have a user group website. It's KCO365.wordpress.com. Nothing fancy, but it does host what we have. So you can see on here, you can see registration for the current user group. You can view our previous meetings right here by clicking this link and it takes you to YouTube. Or if you're interested in speaking, up here on the right, there is a speaker call link. And if you click on that link, there is a form that you can fill out. So if you are interested in speaking, I don't care if you have ever spoken before, if you speak all the time, if you're interested in telling your story, maybe talking about something neat that's happened for your business with Office 365, maybe talk about an application that you like, just go ahead and click on the speaker call and fill out that form, and we'll reach out to you and try to get you set up for a presentation. Okay, so before we get started into Teams, I'm going to give you guys a quick overview. So this is me. My name is Sharon Weaver, and I am the CEO of Smarter Consulting. And I have taught for a long time. I've worked in development for a long time. I'm also a Six Sigma Black Belt and a certified business and systems analyst. All my information's right here on the page. If you want to follow me on Twitter, you can follow me at Sharon E. Weaver. I mostly post about Microsoft stuff, so I try to keep you guys updated. Also, like I said before, if you have questions either we don't make it to or that you have going forward, please feel free to email me. My email is right here. You can grab it and then just send me an email whenever you want. All right. So today we're going to talk about Teams. I know there's a lot of people that are using Teams right now, and there are a lot of people who either have used Teams kind of up to this, but maybe they don't know it very well, or maybe you haven't really used Teams before and you're like, okay, can you kind of give me some tips and tricks so I know what I'm doing every day? So today we're going to talk about Teams, but for just a couple minutes before we get specifically to Teams, I want to kind of give you a really quick overview of how Teams interacts with Office 365. I feel like that makes a little more sense for people sometimes. So we have Office 365, and a lot of people really don't understand kind of how that connects to Teams. And so what ends up happening is we have this Office 365 group that gets made, okay? No matter where you make it, whether you make it through SharePoint, whether you make it through Outlook, whether you make it through Teams, what happens is on the back end, we have an Office 365 group. That's typically the name of your team, or it's the name of your site, whatever that name is that you put in for that group. And what happens is this group is used by the email address and the group calendar that is tied to that group. It's used by the SharePoint site that's tied to that group. It's used by the planner area that's tied to that group. So all plans are associated with that group. And it's also got a stream area that is assigned to that group. So all these different areas use the group permissions to be able to understand who should have access to the SharePoint site, who should have access to the group calendar and the group email, who should have access to the stream area, who should have access to the plans that are tied to this group. Well, what happens is when we add Teams on top of that, Teams is kind of like a browser, and it ties directly to that Office 365 group. So essentially, you can say that a team is synonymous with an Office 365 group. And that way, what happens is now I can see my information through Teams. I can see my SharePoint files in Teams. I can see my planner plans in Teams, and I can see my stream content in Teams. So by tying all of these things together, it makes it a little bit easier for people to access things. The really cool thing, though, is that Teams is not limited to just Office 365. It just uses Office 365 as its primary area to track information. All right, so let's get to the good stuff. Let's talk about Microsoft Teams. So if you can see my screen, I'm going to start, and you can go to anything in Office 365 just by simply typing in www.office.com, log in with your Office 365 or Microsoft 365 credentials, whatever your email address is, and you should get a screen that kind of looks like this that tells you which apps you have access to. And the one that we're going to look at today is Teams. Teams comes in 3 primary applications. So the first application is the web application or the online version. Right here, I can click on Teams. I can see it in the browser. Notice how it's built into the browser right here. There is also a client application that you can download directly to your computer, and there is a mobile app that you can download to your phone. And so any of those you can use, they all work interactively together, and that allows you to do different things depending on what you're trying to accomplish. For the most part, the web version and the client application version are almost identical. There's only a few differences in settings in terms of what the client application can access through your device, but basically they're pretty much the same application. So the first thing that I'm going to show you is the teams and the channels. So if you look over here, I have this little left panel, and you can see that there's different buttons, and you're not entirely sure which button does what. So I'll kind of walk you through those, and I'll see what you can see in this. So the first thing you see up here is this activity button. If you think of this kind of like your inbox in Outlook, you know how when you go to your Outlook in the morning and you want to see how many emails you have so that you can look up things, or maybe you get on Facebook and on the right-hand side on your mobile app, it's got the activity list and the activity feed of what's happening. This tells me that I have new things that I need to look at because the little red bubble too. And if I click on this, it's going to say, hey, here are the things that have happened to you since the time that we have left. So if somebody's messaged you or somebody's mentioned you in something, you can see it over here in your feed. You can also filter this down. So I can click on the drop down and I can limit it to just my activity, which is the stuff that I have sent out, or I can see the feed for where other people have done things to me, mentioned me, added me, things like that. I can also, there's a little filter button over here, and I can actually filter it down to certain people if I want to see what they've done, limited to that. I can also click the 3 dots right here after I click on the filter. So I click the filter icon, click on the 3 dots, and I can narrow this the activity feed down to specific types of activities. So maybe I only want to see the missed calls, maybe I only want to see where I've been mentioned, and I can limit that activity down. Once again, inside of the feed, click the little filter button, click the 3 dots, and then choose the type of feed items that you want to see. All right, so this is just your activity feed, very similar to most social media apps, very similar to your inbox, and it just shows you what's been going on. The next thing you see here is chat. And you can see where people have chatted with you, and you can chat with them. So it's very similar to maybe on your phone where you've chatted with 1 or more people, and this is the history of where you've chatted with them. You can also create new chats from here. So maybe, for example, I want to chat with a new person. If you look right up here at the top, there's a little square and it looks kind of like a little pencil. And I can just click that little pencil and I can say that I want to talk to somebody. And if I'm already talking to that person, so maybe I want to talk to Jonathan because I want to chat with him, it will say, hey, you've already chatted with him over here. And so it'll pull up the history of that. Maybe I want to talk to Lee, and notice how it pulls up the chat. But maybe I want to talk to Lee and Jonathan together, and it will create a new chat. And now I will have a history for both Jonathan and Lee separately. The really cool thing about group chats is it knows the difference between a private chat and a group chat. So if I'm in a private chat, maybe with Jonathan, and I want to add somebody else up here in the right-hand corner, I can add additional people. And because I'm only talking to one other person, Teams considers this a private chat. But then maybe I want to be able to add somebody. So I want to add Lee to our group. And what will happen is it will say, okay, I know that this is no longer a private chat with Jonathan. I know that this is a group chat with somebody else. So it knows the difference. So you don't have to worry about having a private chat, adding somebody, and then having them see the history. When I'm in a group chat, if I add additional people to it, so maybe I want to add somebody else to this, what it will do is it'll say, hey, this is a group chat. When you add these people, do you want to include the chat history, and if so, how much? So I want to include all of my chat history for this person. I only want to include maybe the last couple of days for this person, or no, don't include any chat history at all. So the really nice thing with a group chat is as you add people, you can determine how much of the chat history they have visibility to, and then that way you can maintain that for your entire group. You can see that when I chat with people, it's just like any other chat option. So down here on the bottom, I can just type and talk to them. I also have the option to do some fun things with my chat. So if I click on this first one, you've got some fun text things that I can do with it. I can highlight it, or I can do some text editing with it. I can add links, I can insert tables, all kinds of super cool stuff. I can prioritize this and say, hey, this is super important and I want people to pay attention to it, or I can use this really fun urgent option. And what'll happen is they will actually be notified every 2 minutes for 20 minutes until they click on it and see what it has to say. So if you really want to get a hold of somebody through Teams, this urgent thing is kind of the way to go. I could add an attachment directly from this chat. So maybe we're chatting, we're talking about going over something. I can pull something directly out of my OneDrive, or I can upload it from my computer, and I can say, hey, I'd like to be able to share this document with you, and I want to be able to give it to you. So I can put it right there. I can also share emojis. So maybe I want to share how I feel about things. There you go. When I'm ready to send, notice there's a little paper airplane down here. I can click the paper airplane and it will send it just like any other chat. Also, I've got GIFs. These can be managed at the policy level by your administrator. So in the Teams administration setting in Office 365, they can manage the level of the types of GIFs and things that people have access to. So I can send different things. I can also go to this one that says sticker, and there's all kinds of cool other things, including a meme generator. So maybe I want to make my own meme. And then I can send it to my friends. Oh, there it is. All right. So I can even make my own memes in here. There's a few other things you can do too. If you notice down at the bottom, you have a little calendar icon. You can schedule a meeting directly from this chat. So maybe I'm in a chat with Jonathan, or maybe I'm in a chat with a small group, and I just want to schedule a meeting for those people. It will actually pull them directly into it, and I can schedule a meeting directly from there. I can share a stream video directly with a person or a group. I can share a praise directly with a person or group. So if I want to tell somebody how awesome they are, I can post it in here, and I can call somebody out, and then I can send it to the person or group, and it will actually put it straight in here. I can also associate custom apps with this. So you can see there's some apps, maybe I want to share the weather with this group, or I want to go find more apps. So it's kind of neat, just like a normal chat option, but I can share it with one or more people. This chat option essentially replaces Skype. So for some of you guys, you might still have Skype and you might be using it separate from Teams, you might be using it in Teams, or maybe you're only using Teams by itself. But this chat option essentially replaces the parts of Skype that you were probably using. So things like chatting with your friends, chatting with your coworkers. But then up here at the right, you can also see that you can also make phone calls with one or more people, and you can do a video call with one or more people. So these are the elements that are very, very similar to what you would have used in Skype before. Teams has replaced those. Also, I think it works a lot better. I think you have a really good connection in here. All right, so that's chat at a high level. So the next thing I'm going to show you is this third option on your left navigation, which is Teams. So you remember when I told you about how the group matches to the team? So you can see that I have a team name for each of these areas. And the really cool part is these are backed by Office 365 groups. So if I want to see this Office 365 group and I want to see who's in it, I can actually go to the team name and click on the ... and I can either manage the team or I can add a member directly from here. So if I click on Manage Teams, you can see these are the members and the guests that are inside of that particular team, and this corresponds one-to-one for the Office 365 group that's behind it. So I can see who's in here and I can see who has what level of access. Anybody can be an owner except for guests. So if I have a guest that's been invited to my team, they can only be a member and they can never be an owner. Owners have a few special permissions in terms of being able to manage the team and being able to look at a few things that members can't. Other than that, everybody's pretty much at the same hierarchy. So I see a question on the board that says, can anyone see who is in the group, or do you have to be an owner? And the answer to that is anybody should be able to see who is in the group. It doesn't matter if you're a member or an owner, you should be able to see who's in the group. And if you can't see it, then there may be something special policy-wise at your administration level. But out of the box, anybody should be able to see who's in the group. So underneath the team, you can see that I've got these things down here. And these are called channels. So my team is a group of people, and everybody in that team has access to what we call the general channel. And the general channel is, think of it kind of like the first floor of an apartment building. You have to have the first floor to have the apartment building. So general is the base floor that comes with a team. So we've got our general channel. Everybody in the team or the group has access to the channel. And if you add additional channels, those additional channels can be either private or public. If you don't see them, sometimes it'll say hidden channels. So these two are hidden. All you have to do is click on the hidden channels, hover over them, and there's a show option. And then they will pop up in here. Otherwise, you could just click on them and you could still see them. All right, I see some questions popping up about governance. I'll cover those at the end of the presentation, otherwise we might get a little bit too deep into them. I do also see a question about making the screen bigger. If you guys are having trouble seeing the screen, if you actually click on the screen that has the content, sometimes that'll get a little bigger on your screen and it'll hide some of the other things. I've noticed that sometimes people have that problem. All right, so we've got these things called channels underneath here. Channels can be private or public. To make a new channel, you hover over the team, go to the ... and you're going to select Add Channel. You can see down here, I can give the channel a name, give it a description, and under Privacy, there's a drop down, and you can have what's called a standard or public channel, meaning everybody on the team has access, or I can make a private channel. This is limited to people that are only within the team. So you still have to pick people that are in the team, but you could have less people. So say you have 20 people in the team, but you only want 5 of them to have access to the private channel. You can do that. What you can't do is have a private channel that has people that are not in the team added to that. They need to be in the team first, and then you can limit that group of people to a private channel. A couple of gotchas on private channels. So a private channel will create a separate SharePoint site that hosts your files in a completely different place. So just something to note. In addition, when you pick the idea of a public or private channel, you're stuck to that. So if you want a public channel, make sure it's a public channel. If you want a private channel, make sure it's a private channel. You can always add everybody to the private channel afterwards, but it's still going to have its own private resources. And you can't just toggle between public and private in the channels like you can in a group. All right. So we've got our team, we've got our channels. Same thing in teams, you can have a public or private team. The difference in the team is that you can toggle it between public and private. So you can actually manage the team. Oh, I'm not an owner, am I? Hang on. Yep, I'm not logged in as an owner and I'm not an owner. So you can see I can't edit the team itself. I can only view the team. So I'm going to make myself an owner so you can see what this looks like. I have a special off-camera area to be able to do this. All right, so I'm going to make myself an owner. All right. And what happens is, now notice I'm going to be in the owner area and see how I will get a few other options on here. And one of those options is I can edit the team now. So I couldn't edit the team itself as a member, but I could still see all of the members and I could still see all the details. I just couldn't edit the team itself. So now that I'm an owner, I can edit the team. And notice how the team itself, I can make public or private. I can also make it org-wide where automatically anybody in your Active Directory gets added. I recommend you kind of leave this to your IT groups or to your administration departments to use. You can add everybody if you really want to, but private and public is pretty much the common things to do. So you can toggle your team from private to public, but you can't toggle your channels from private to public. Okay, so we've talked about teams and channels. So the next thing that's inside of a channel is these tabs up here. So remember I said it's kind of like a browser interface. So when you're in your channel, and every single channel has its own set of tabs. So as you look through here, if I click on these channels, notice that each of those channels looks different in here. So let's say, for example, that I want to add some information that I want to share with this group. So maybe the cycling group that's part of Corporate Challenge, I want to be able to share some information with them. So you can see that inside of here, I've got these different headers. So all channels are born with a couple of things. They've got a conversation area for us to chat within the channel of the people that have access to it. They've got a files area for us to post our documents. In this files area is actually stored in SharePoint, and you can see that because up here on the right, there is an open in SharePoint link. If I click on the open in SharePoint link, you will notice that I have a SharePoint site with a document library, and I have a channel that's associated with that channel. In this case, I named it biking and then I renamed it cycling, but it still is the same original name. So you can see that I've got biking, bowling in general. I've got cycling, bowling in general. These folders in the SharePoint library correspond one-to-one with the channels and the files that are stored for those. All right. So if I go in here and I say I want to share a file with my group, I got posts, which is my conversation history. I got files, which is my document library that's shared. And then I kind of get this generic wiki page. It's just very static information. You can't really export this or copy and paste it, but sometimes I'll use it for specific information that needs to be shared with the team that I don't want them to copy and paste out. But we want to store our files in here. So let's say, for example, I want to create a document that I want to share with the team. Inside of my document library, I can either upload an existing document or I can just create a new one from here. So if you click on new, I can make a folder. I can make any of my Office documents. Maybe I want to make an information document. And notice how it'll create it all in Teams. It'll actually open Word directly in here. And I can put some information in here. Right, and I can give them some information that they might need to know for the cycling information. When I close this document, it will get saved in the files for that particular channel. So notice if I go to bowling and I look at the files for bowling, that document that I just made does not exist because it only exists in the folder that's associated with the cycling channel. But maybe I want to share this with my team because there's going to be a lot of documents in there and they're going to get lost. So remember I told you you've got this tab. So when you click on the tab, all kinds of fun things pop up. All right. So we can share all kinds of different things. At the very top, it shows me a lot of the stuff that's in my Microsoft ecosystem. So maybe I want to share one of the document libraries that's associated with this group. Maybe I want to share an Excel file or a Word document that's associated with this group, which is what we're going to do in a minute. Maybe I just want to share a generic website for people to be able to look at things. Maybe I want to share a Power BI dashboard. So this is all of your Microsoft stuff at the top. But hey, guess what? Microsoft has figured out there's other people on the planet. So you can go down and you can actually pick if maybe you guys have a Jira board that you use Jira Online, or maybe you use something else like Bitbucket, or you use GitHub, or any of these things that are listed here. You can actually share these with your team. Now, fair warning, if these are subscription sites, you still each have to have a subscription, or you have to have an enterprise level subscription and a login. It has to be tied back to your login. So just because you can click on it doesn't mean you can use it. But once you click on this, it will add it to that tab. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, for example, I want to be able to share the Word doc that I just made. So I'm going to choose Word, and it's going to say inside of this team, we already have this item. If I wanted to go outside the team, I could click on the little arrow up and it will take me outside of the team. But I want to share the document that's inside of my team. So I'm going to select it and click Save. And the really neat thing here is that it's going to generate a tab, and it's going to open that Word document so that anybody on the team doesn't have to go look for it. They know that this is the right document. If they want to edit it, they can edit it right here in Teams. They can make any changes they need to make. They can comment on it and have a discussion about it and update it right here. In addition, you can rename this title to whatever you want so it makes more sense. All you have to do is click on the drop-down, click Rename, and say, maybe this is just general info. And now when they click on that, that'll have all of the information that they need right there on that tab. Maybe in addition, I think that my cycling team would get some really good information from going to the Tour de France website to find out what's going on, because they're cyclists, so they're very interested in that. So I'm also going to add the Tour de France website in here by clicking a tab, and I want to just use a generic website. And I can paste the link for the website. Whoops, that is not the right one. Let's copy that again. All I'm doing is copying this right here. I'm just pasting it right into this URL. And then check it out, my team can actually have access to the Tour de France website right here within Teams, and I don't have to go look somewhere else. So everybody can come in and all of their information is very easily findable within here. All right, this is my, probably one of my favorite features of all of Teams is the tabs, because you can put everything where it belongs. And the really nice thing is now if I go back to that general channel, the general people who are on a different team don't care about the Tour de France. The bowling team does not care about the Tour de France, but the cycling team does. Oh, look. So what also happens when you do things in the teams is that it's going to post information about what you've done. So I can post these things at the top, and now you'll notice that my team will recognize, hey, this thing happened, and then they'll know, and then they can comment on that. So just a nice way to let your team know what's going on. So I see a quick question that says the folders do not dynamically get renamed based on the channel. That is correct, as you saw. So if you guys have a background in SharePoint, whenever you create things in SharePoint, we have the creation name and then we have the display name. So what ends up happening is when you make a channel originally, it creates the creation name, which corresponds to the folder. Once you change it after that, it's only a display name. So for after you've made it, whatever you change it to is simply the display name, and it does not update the folder behind the scenes. All right. So that's a little bit about teams and channels and files and tabs. Another big question that I get asked about is meetings. So there's a couple of different ways to create meetings inside of Teams. One way to create a meeting is simply over here on the left-hand side. So we've clicked on the Teams left nav, but we can also click on the calendar button, and the calendar button is going to be really exciting. It's going to show you your personal calendar. There's more to come, but for right now, you can see your personal calendar. But if you want to schedule a meeting, you can do it right here from this calendar tab. You don't have to go back to Outlook if you don't want to. Notice up here at the right, I have two options. I can meet with somebody right now. So if I click the Meet Now button, there we go, it'll pop up. So if I go, let me go back here. If I go to Meet Now, it will actually try to start a meeting and it'll say, okay, and then you can pull people into that meeting. Or I can schedule a meeting for later. And I've got the option. I can schedule a regular Teams meeting, which is where everybody can talk and everybody can interact and everybody can share their screens. Or I can schedule a live event like what we're doing today. So if you want to schedule a webinar, it's pretty easy. You just schedule a live event. In this case, maybe we want to schedule a meeting. So I'm going to click on schedule meeting, and this looks a lot like Outlook. So we have a title to our meeting. And maybe we want to schedule a meeting with the cyclist for corporate challenge. Right. So I'm going to schedule a cyclist meetup for the corporate challenge stuff. I'm going to decide who needs to be there. Jonathan and Lee have both expressed interest in being on the cycling team. So we're going to invite them. We can decide when we want to do the meeting. Let's just go ahead and schedule it for today. But the really neat thing that happens here is that I can also apply this meeting to a channel. So notice that it shows me all of the teams at my disposal, and I want to very specifically apply this meeting to a channel so that people in that channel get that information. This is a little different than going through Outlook, because what's going to happen is it will send it to these people's individual Outlook calendars, but the primary meeting is actually stored in the channel as opposed to having somebody make it in Outlook. So this is going to invite these people. And then what will happen is it'll show up in the channel. All right. I can add a location if I want to, but notice how one difference is if you've been making Teams meetings in Outlook, there's the option to add a Teams meeting. I don't have that option here because I'm making it in Teams. It automatically assumes that it's a Teams meeting. So if I want to add a location, I can, but if I don't want to, I don't have to. Maybe I want to do it at Shawnee Mission Park because why not? All right. So we'll meet up and we'll chat about this. So then once I send it, here's something neat that happens. So first of all, it will add it to each of the attendees' calendars in addition to mine because I'm the one that made it. But it will also add it back into the channel. So if I go back to Teams and notice how this is bolded, this is a nice way to know that something has changed in your channel. Also, if you want to be alerted for anything that's changed in your channel, if you click on the ... next to the channel, there's an option for channel notifications. And you can determine if you want to get notifications when somebody posts. And you can see that here. The banner means that you're going to get a pop-up like the purple ones that you've been seeing. Or maybe I only want to see it in my feed. All right, so I can choose if I get notifications for things that pop up in channels. I'm going to go ahead and say yes. Let's go ahead and get a pop-up for all of that. I also want to know if anybody replies to something that's been posted. All right. Anytime the channel is mentioned somewhere else, I'd also like to get a pop-up, and I'll show you what that does. So I can manage what notifications I get. And now if I go look, because this is bolded, I know something's new, I can click on it, and the meeting is actually posted inside of the channel. It tells me when and what time, and all I have to do to join that meeting is to click on this post right here, and there's a join button for me. And so I don't have to go look for it. I don't have to go mess with it. It will also be in my calendar. But it's really handy for those times when you've accidentally deleted or accidentally can't find it and you need to go look back. Or maybe you just want to generically let everybody in that channel know that there is a meeting, but you don't want to invite people individually. So if there's other people that are in this channel that are not necessarily invited to that meeting, they will still know that it happens. They will still be able to click on it. They will still be able to join. It just won't be on their own personal calendars. All right. And I mentioned if you're mentioning a channel that you'll get an alert. So maybe I want to go into the general channel and I want to let people know that there's going to be a cycling meeting just in case they haven't signed up for the cycling channel. So if you are interested in another sport, check out the cycling and see how I can do my @ symbol, just like I do in other social media. It will mention that cycling channel. So I'm going to promote my channel. And then what will happen is I'll also get a notification eventually for the stuff that I've put over here into this by mentioning the cycling channel. All right. So we'll have that information there and that information there. So that's the first way you can make a meeting, is just simply to go into Teams, click on calendar, and click on new meeting and fill it out. Another way that you can schedule a meeting is through Outlook, either online in your client app or in your mobile app. Okay, so I'm going to go into Outlook, and inside of Outlook, the online and the client app are a little tiny bit different. In the client app, it's on the ribbon, whereas in the mobile app, it looks a little trickier. So in the client app, you just create a meeting like you normally would, and at the very top where you would have put Skype meeting, there should be a Teams meeting option. In your mobile app or in your Outlook online, if you go to calendar down here at the bottom and you click on calendar, at the very top, there's an option for a new event. So just like any other meeting, I can make a meeting in here. I can invite people, but I can also invite groups. In this case, I can't invite the channel directly, but I can invite the corporate challenge group, which is associated to a team. I can choose who, I can choose when, I can choose what. And then what you're going to find is that notice that there's no Teams button up here on the ribbon, which gets a little confusing. It's down here in the middle where it says search for room location. Right next to that, you will either have this Teams meeting on and off, or you'll have a drop down that'll say Teams and Skype, depending on what level your organization is at. So speaking of, there's a question on my board that says, what's the compatibility between Skype for Business and Teams meetings if Teams coexistence is set to Teams only? So essentially what happens is that in the Teams admin, your administrator has the option to allow your Teams and Skype to integrate seamlessly so that everybody can click on and use it. If those are not set up together, then you can't use Skype. And if Teams coexistence is set to Teams only, then it depends on the other organizations that you're working with. For the most part, from what I've seen, Teams and Skype seems to work pretty seamlessly together. The only ones that are a little tricky are the ones that are still only on Skype. And if they're only on Skype, if they click on your Teams meeting, it should be fine. But likely they will send you a Skype meeting as opposed to a Teams meeting. If it's Teams only, then you will just see this Teams meeting on or off, and all you have to do is click the button. And no, it doesn't put anything into it. It doesn't make you anything. It doesn't tell you anything. It's just blue, and then you know that it's a Teams meeting. And then once you've actually created the meeting, it will give you a link. So I'm going to go ahead and send this out. I'm going to make this a different time so you can see it on our calendar. And now you can see that when I click on this meeting, there's a join Teams meeting option because you clicked that button. Inside of your Outlook Online, I'll pull this up so you can see it. So if you want to make a meeting, notice how see up here, there's a Teams meeting link. When you click on the Teams meeting link, it will actually add the details down here into your Teams meeting. And so that way you'll know that it has a Teams meeting. The really nice thing is once you've created this meeting, you can just simply copy that Teams meeting hyperlink, and it's good for anybody that you want to join the meeting. All right, so now I've got those two meetings on there. The third option is you can create it on your mobile app, and on your mobile app, if you download the Outlook mobile app, you can actually create a meeting directly from your calendar. And once again, it's that little button. It looks just like this. It's about halfway down, and it just has a toggle, and it says Teams meeting, and all you have to do is select Teams meeting, and it will allow you to have a Teams meeting in there. You cannot do that if you're on if you're like on an iPhone and you're using your out-of-the-box calendar app. You can't add a Teams meeting that way. You have to use the Outlook mobile app to be able to do that. Okay, I got a couple more minutes. So the other two big things that people ask me is about recordings. So to record a meeting, when you're inside of a meeting, there's actually 3 little dots. Whenever you're inside of a meeting, I'm going to start a meeting real quick, just so you can see what that looks like. So I'm going to go on to this meeting and I'm going to join it. Turn these off. And what you can see is once you've started a meeting, you get this little bar, and the little bar manages your camera, your microphone, you're sharing your content. So I can choose what I want to share. But the 3 little dots is where you would record it. So if you click on the 3 little dots, you can start recording here and end recording here. Once you've recorded it, it's actually deposited into Stream. And then after that, you'll be able to access it and you'll get a link to it at the end of the meeting. So I'm going to go ahead and record this for just a minute. And then that way you can see what happens and what it looks like. And then when I'm done, I click on the 3 dots again and I can stop recording the meeting. And it says after the meeting, you can find this recording in Microsoft Stream. Let's say got it. I'm going to hang up on the meeting, which will close it. And then what you'll notice is after we have that meeting, I can then find that information in Stream. So it'll take it a couple of seconds for it to upload it. But then we're going to go back to our office.com home. And one of the options we have under our applications is called Stream. And inside of Stream, it will actually record any meetings that I've been invited to. They'll be right here in my videos. And if I want to copy the link to share with other people, I can just right click on the video, copy the link address, and then check this out. Remember how I told you tabs are cool? And go back to my team. I can go to my cycling meeting, and maybe I want to share the video of that meeting with my friends. So what's really neat is I can actually share Stream directly in here. I want to share a specific video, so I'm going to select video. I'm going to paste in the link for that video that I just saw. It'll say, yep, this is the right one. It tells me the title. It'll automatically name the tab whatever the meeting name was. So we can say the cyclist meetup video or something like that, so people know what it was. I can save it. And now the really cool part is now anybody who might have missed that meeting can simply go into the cycling channel. They can click on the video and they can watch it directly from here, and they don't even have to go to Stream. So it's kind of handy. It's like one of my favorite new things is being able to go into Stream, grab the video, pop it in here. In addition, maybe I want to share an entire channel of videos. So I can actually share all staffing meetings or a specific meeting by using a Stream channel, which is a little outside the topic of this, but it's interesting enough for you guys to look into. All right, so I've got about 10 minutes left. I know that's a lot and it's really fast. I tried to kind of go over the highlights. Oh, I will tell you one more minute. I'll show you one more thing. Settings. I know that everybody asked me about settings. So if you want to go manage the settings for your Teams application, if you look for your picture or your initials up at the top right and click on that, there's actually a settings gear right here, and you can manage your notifications right here for everything. And notice how I can't manage my devices because this is a web version of this. If I opened my client application version of this, there's an extra item right here called devices, and you can click on the device and you can actually manage your microphone, your speakers, your video, things like that right there. But you can only do that from the client application because the one in the browser uses your browser settings for that. So that's another big question I get asked. Okay, now I got 10 minutes left. I'll be watching the live Q&A. So if you guys have questions, I'm going to start looking through these and trying to answer them. So go ahead and send me your questions for the last few minutes. I'll answer as many of them as I can get to. So it looks like the first question I've got is, are we able to add backgrounds to Teams yet? So the right answer to this is soon, very, very soon. So this has been pushed up on the Teams production list. It's planned to go out to most tenants starting probably this week. It's going out in one of the next release cycles. So most people should start seeing backgrounds in Teams over the next few weeks, just depending on how long it takes to get to your tenant. It also depends on what version of whether you've got the preview releases or whether you're just on the regular stuff. It should come to your tenant soon though. So they will be out just very, very soon. All right, let's see. What's the best practice in setting up groups? Seems like you would want to have a pre-existing group for each department role before you set up a team. That way there aren't multiple groups with the same people. Good question. So when you're talking about Teams governance, this is very similar to what we used to look at in SharePoint site governance. It's really better for you to understand how you're going to use Teams before you start making all of the teams. That way it's a good idea of, do I want departments? Do I want areas? Do I want topics? Am I going to allow my people to be able to make their own teams for community area stuff? Am I only going to use administrative level departments? So it's a really good idea to have a governance in terms of how you want to use them, and then try to build around that governance. If you need any assistance with that, that's actually what I do for a living, is I try to help people make sure they have what they need and set it up correctly. And so I would say work on a governance plan or find somebody to help you with that. And then yes, after you have a governance plan to know kind of which groups you want and how you want people to use those groups, then you can use that plan to then build the teams and groups that you want to use. All right, I see another question. It says, is there any way to change the branding so your team looks different from each other? So this is all driven by the group. So you'll notice that I've got this blue H up here, and this is actually all driven from the group itself. So you would either have to go into group administration in the admin panel, or you can go into it in another place like maybe Outlook to be able to manage the group, and you can actually change this logo for the group itself. So maybe let's say we're going to go to SharePoint and do this. So maybe we want to change the HR logo. So the quickest and easiest way maybe to go into SharePoint. And then you can see that this logo persists through here, right? You can also see that the logo persists in Outlook if I go into the group. So if I go down here under groups. Oops. It should pop up in here. So you can manage your groups from different places, but the group is what actually feeds through to Teams, so you have to manage it at the group level. You can also go into administration and manage that. There's not a whole lot of fun stuff you can do with it out of the box, though. I think right now the only thing you can do is change this logo. All right, let's see. The next question says, every time I receive a request to join a Teams meeting and click on the link, it opens both the web version and my Teams app. Is there a way to disable the web version from opening? I have not figured out a way to do that, but if anybody does, I'd be glad if somebody would tell me. I don't think so. Basically what happens when you join the link is, because it's web driven and Teams is actually built mobile and web first. That's the very first thing it does, is tries to take you to the website. And then if you have the app open, you can click on the button. But unfortunately, as far as I know, I don't know that there's a quick way to remedy that. But I'd be open to it if anybody knows what the answer to that is. All right, let's see. The next question, does Microsoft Teams use E2E encryption, and can non-Microsoft email sign up? Microsoft Teams doesn't actually contain any data. It only shows you data that already lives out there. So for example, the email actually lives in Exchange. In fact, the conversations all live in Exchange as well. So all of the encryption settings are all based on your Exchange settings. As far as non-Microsoft emails, there's two different places you can check that. One is the Teams administration settings in terms of whether or not you allow guest users and external access, and also at your tenant level, whether you allow external access. Once you get into Exchange, there's some other rules around which domains are allowed and whitelisted. So I would say check with your security team in terms of how your Office 365 administration settings are set up, your Exchange administration settings are set up, and your external user access is set up. And that should give you a better idea of all of your security stuff around Teams specifically. The next question I see is, what is the cost to add it to Office 365? Hey, that's the good news. If you already have Office 365, Teams is included in your subscription. There is no additional cost. In addition, there is a free Teams version. So all you have to do is Google Microsoft Teams free, and you can actually sign up for Teams for free. There's a couple of different options that you have. So you can get a free version of Teams. Also notice that up here on the top it says get Microsoft Teams with Office 365 Business Essentials free for 6 months. So because of what's happening right now with COVID, Microsoft is trying to make it easier than ever for people to get access to it. So there's a very basic plan you can get if you want to be able to use Teams that'll give you, in addition, the Office 365 Business Essentials license, and you can get it for 6 months for free right now. And all you have to do is click on this, or you can reach out and we can help you with that. Another thing you can do is actually get a completely free version of this for you to be able to use. It does not give you the Office 365 backend features. It only gives you the chat features. Or if you have an Office 365 license of any size, Teams is included with that Office 365 license at no additional cost. All right, the next question is, what is the easiest way to get users without Teams enabled into a Teams meeting via any device? So you don't really need to have Teams enabled to be able to use it. So you can tell any Teams meeting has that link. So I do links all of the time with people who don't use Teams. And so whenever you make that meeting that I was telling you about before, so if I make, I'll show you this again. So if I make a meeting and I just click this Teams meeting right here, all you have to do is grab this link and send it out to your users. And when they click on that, it will take them to the Teams meeting. And it doesn't, as long as you have external users turned on at your tenant level, then they will be able to click on this and log in with any email address. It doesn't matter what their email address is, and then they will be able to use that Teams meeting via the web, via their phone, or via the client app, but they don't have to download the application to use it. In addition, I pay like $4 a month. And I get this additional conference number right here. So people don't even have to log into the meeting if they want to. If it's only a conference number, then they can just call that number. If you want that, you can reach out and I can walk you through it. But basically, all you have to do is in your billing area for your Office 365 tenant, there is a product that is an audio number that you can associate with your individual users, and it will give you a number for that meeting. All right, looks like we're right at 1 o'clock. Thank you guys for joining today, and we really appreciate you coming and hearing about Teams. If you have any questions, I will put my information back up. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to me via email or via Twitter or via our contact us form. I'm happy to get back to you. I'm happy to answer any questions that you've got, or if you need anything else, just let me know. We do have a pile of swag that we've had no events to go to hand out. So if anybody would like me to send them out to anything, if you will send me an email with your name and address, I'd be happy to send you some swag in the mail. Other than that, everybody have a fabulous day, and thank you for coming. Bye.